Quasi-judicial in nature. If any person believes any member of the board has a conflict of interest, that issue should be raised at this point or it will be deemed waived. If I happen to break down a little bit in the middle of this meeting, excuse me, but when they tell you that the booster shot does not affect you, don't believe it. But yesterday was the bad day. Today is all right. I would like to introduce the members, especially our new alternate at the end, Mr. Larry Booz.
Hi.
Hi. Would you like to say a few words? 2 words.
2 words. Hi and thank you.
Dr. Dan Brown.
Good evening.
And Mr. Martin Ryan.
Good evening.
Yes, Reagan Rudig.
Good evening.
And our Vice Chair, Margot Doring.
Hello.
My name is John Wyckoff. I'm the Chair. Assistant Planner, Isaac Gilbo.
Good evening.
And our City Council member, Rich Blaylock.
He will be joining us in just about an hour.
Okay. And Mr. David Adams.
Good evening.
And our other alternate, Karen Bouffard.
Good evening.
All righty.
Until Rich gets here, who is your alternate?
Excuse me?
Until Rich arrives, who will vote in his place?
Karen would vote.
Okay.
Yeah, she's our number 1 alternate. And I mean the number 1. So the minutes are not included on this, as you've all seen, but we will get them next month.
Yes, exactly.
Get some approvals on them. We now have our administrative approvals, and Isaac has total control over this and knows which ones to pull out.
All right, so we'll be pulling 3 items out for separate approval. That would be item number 1, which is 169 Lafayette Road, Unit 2. Item number 8, that is 50 South School Street, Unit 3. And item number 12, that is 425 Islington Street. We will do the remaining admin approvals as they are in order after that. So our first order will be 169 Lafayette Road. And the applicant here is seeking approval for a fence installation for their portion of the yard. It's a condominium association at 169 Lafayette. They've submitted 2 options to the HDC for approval, so either option 1 or 2. And so I will just kind of scroll down and we will see that. So here is the entire property for 169. This would be the portion that is the Unit 2 side yard, as you can see in blue. And they have also designated where the Unit 1 and Unit 3 existing fences are as well. This fence does not exist at the moment.
So if I may take over, this is always trouble when we have our choice. So do we have some opinions, kind of quick, like?
Well, my concern was less, although I would prefer the wooden one, but my concern was the placement of this, how the fence comes way forward into the front yard, which is not really seen in the neighborhood to the right or the left, and is not consistent with the unit to the right. So I'm just raising the issue of the placement for discussion.
Okay. Any other opinions? Are we all looking at the wood fence, or, yes, Mark?
Well, I think the wood fence doesn't have so much, that sense that there's a gate that's off to the side is less obvious with the wood fence as depicted. I know it's a kind of a interesting depiction, but it might be workable that way. I could support that.
All wood, excuse me, all wood fence?
All wood.
Okay, so nobody's expressed any opinion, so we have an all wood fence. So all those in favor, say aye.
Are we still gonna?
Oh,
Sorry.
you're so quiet, I didn't
say anything until just now. I was gonna talk to Margot's point about the placement of the fence, and I guess all we have to go on is, I don't know what page I'm on, where it talks about the fence boundaries. Keep going. That one. So there's like, the line, and I know that there are restrictions for how close and how far the fence can be and what the height is and stuff like that. So I didn't know if we knew if they're just going all the way to that line, to like the allowed.
I'm not entirely sure what the intent is. However, when they do put a building permit in, if we
Yeah.
get to that point, it will have to be within the city's standard setbacks.
Okay.
So it can only go as far as that. And then there would be a height restriction on that one street side there as well. Yeah, that they would have to abide
As
by,
well
which
as the
is
corner.
That's correct. Yeah.
Corners have to be down to 4 feet also.
I mean, oh, great, come on up. Thank you.
Let's go. Fence.
Please come and introduce yourself.
My name's Andrew Shane, own the house with my wife. So the fence will be probably 6 to 8 feet off of the road because there's a large bank that goes down along a tree line with shrubs. So it's a ways back off the road because we're worried about snow and also that slope. So we're trying to keep it up on the flat part of the yard.
Okay.
Is it, I'm sorry, is it behind or in front of the two relatively mature trees that you have there in the front yard?
I'm sorry.
Is it in front of or behind the two mature trees that you have in the front yard?
The largest mature tree, which is the one that flowers that you can probably see all the time, it will be in front of that, but behind the newer tree that we put in, which is the tallest one. So it's kind of going in between them.
Okay, and the land slopes quite a bit, so the height of the fence will change as you go further to the left as you're looking at the house, correct?
No,
Or
the
is
height
it
of the
going
fence
to-
is going to stay consistent. That's why we're staying off the front slope, because it drops about probably 4 or 5 feet. And then it curves off to the left towards the other house that's next to us a little bit, but that height is going to stay consistent throughout.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't, thank you for the clarification. I don't have a problem. I would prefer the wood fence too. I understand you guys prefer the metal, but we have lots of other, we have more,
Mr. Fry.
no, I'm not trying to rush it. I'm just saying that we have more examples of wooden fences on Middle Street.
Yeah, there's one that just got put in right
Yes.
down the road from us.
Exactly.
Exactly. Understand.
Thank you.
All right, so if everybody's got their comments out, I would like to ask all those in favor.
Mr. Chairman, may I jump in for one last little bit of a comment? I'm puzzled if where the Historic District Commission's position is when they start dividing up a piece of property for their own use, but it doesn't change the fact that it is one house on one lot. And here we're talking about a third kind of fence on the exterior of the house. It seems like the historic district is being stretched. The historic nature of the fencing on this building. It's hard to believe that there was ever a multitude of fences. Now, sometimes in historic properties there was a front yard fence and a side yard fence, but the idea of a fence being different kinds of fence as you go around the property seems to me contrary to our historic fabric. The other thing that I'm puzzled by is why we would entertain a siding fence like this wrapping around the whole section of the property that isn't conforming with our tradition of fencing being put right at the edge of the property line. It seems like we're making an awful lot of deviations from our historic nature of fencing for this applicant.
All right, thank you. So, all those in favor of this proposal say aye.
With the stipulation that it be wood.
What's that?
With the stipulation that it would be the wood fence.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The wood fence. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Does someone need to make a motion?
All those opposed? It's administrative.
Opposed.
approval.
It is.
Opposed?
Yes. Yes.
I move that we approve this one with the stipulation of the wood fence. Take a breath, John.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
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 All righty, let's move along, Isaac.
We picked out 3
Did
elements.
Karen?
Oh, okay.
Did Karen vote or not?
All right, so the next item would be item number 8, that's 50 South School Street, Unit 3. This applicant is hoping to install an EV charger at their home. This is just sort of an idea of where the proposed location is going to go, adjacent to the driveway and walkway for that particular unit. Just another angle showing where the placement would be. Again, one last kind of view. It's sort of hidden by this existing vegetation. And then this is what the unit itself will look like, and it's supported just sort of on a post.
Okay, questions, comments?
Is it black? Is it black? Do you know?
From what I understand, it is
black.
what is the one that's shown in the image. Yes, that's the one that they purchased. Yes.
The reason I asked this to be pulled out was just the placement. I don't have a problem with putting a charger in at all, but the placement behind vegetation that is not always beautiful and green and hiding. These chargers are usually not offensive looking, but I only pulled it out because I wanted to ask what other places had been considered and why they had been discarded, and Isaac had some information on that.
Yes, so there was one previous option that was on the, if I'm not mistaken, on the other side of the driveway, and it was right up on the property line, which would have required a variance from the Board of Adjustment. It was also quite a bit more out in the open, as it wasn't being shielded even by that vegetation on the opposite side. From what I understand, the applicant also wasn't able to actually attach it to the side of the home due to the length of the cable running to it. That's my understanding. I believe the applicant is here if they can speak more to that, but that's my understanding.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
all right. Let's keep going.
Well, should we keep
We need
going?
a
All right,
motion,
fine. I
to
move
vote
that
on
we approve this application as presented,
Second.
this administrative approval. I made a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, very good. Anybody second?
I did.
Yes.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so you
Very
have
good.
your approval.
all right. The next item that we've pulled out for further discussion would be item number 12. That's 425 Islington Street. And this applicant is seeking approval to replace the second floor windows on the property. The windows are currently a vinyl window. The applicant is seeking to replace with a very much in-like window that is also vinyl. And I believe it is a total of 8 windows on the second floor. And so here are some photos of course, the existing and then the interior of the windows. They're just sort of dated and just need to be replaced.
I can't think of any other time when we've accepted vinyl windows, even with replacing current vinyl windows. I think if we are needing to replace vinyl windows, I would like to see a higher quality replacement window go in, not another vinyl window. Might be a 2/2 configuration rather than 1/1. So I think a little bit of thought and research on getting a more appropriate window replacement would be beneficial to this whole house.
Anyone else?
I agree.
Anyone else?
The comment that, in my understanding, I'm not certain, but it appears to me that the windows that are currently there are some kind of replacement frame and window.
Oh,
And it seems awkward. It seems like, I thought we were past doing that. I thought we'd sort of step back away from that further reduction of the size of the window openings by putting these units in. So if we were going to encourage the applicant to look for another kind of window to eventually move the entirety of the building to, it seems like a sash replacement sort of window rather than a full-frame replacement window would be in
You'll get
order.
a little more glass space, glass exposure.
Seems it to me.
Anyone else here? Okay. So, what is the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we table this for the applicant to do a little research and come back.
I'll second.
All right, we're to table this. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right. So now we go down to the complete administrative approval list.
Yes. John, we do have just one request to postpone. That would be item number 2, 466 Marcy Street. If we could just get a motion and a vote to just postpone that, that'd be.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. Perfect. All right, so we will go into item number 3. This was before us last month. The applicant has decided to forego the stairs going from Marcy Street up into the side rear yard. The existing fence will stay as is. So essentially what we're looking at here is really just the replacement of the concrete retaining wall. We do have the applicant here. I was able to speak to the landscape architect today. He was able to let me know that the configurations of the new granite block wall will be exactly that of what's there. The only difference is they will be a little bit wider on the right-hand side. So they'll be about 10 inches wide, and that will slope down to the smaller curved portion. I do believe the homeowner is here. If you could add anything, that would be great.
Sure. I mean, right now, my name is Jeff Doro, my wife Laureen, and right now it's poured concrete. That's the retaining wall, and it's crumbling and leaning over. We're replacing it with antique-looking granite blocks. I mean, legit stuff. And I can bring this up for you to look at if you'd like. But, you know, it's the higher the retaining wall, the thicker the blocks are going to be, up to 2 feet deep. I mean, it's going to be really deep and really strong. And then it'll feather down as it does right now. But it's going to be weathered antique granite blocks. So if you want me to bring up pictures, I can certainly do so.
All right, I don't think.
Okay.
Administrative approval.
And so again, just want to reiterate that the white fence will stay and the stairs are no longer part of this application.
To get rid of the stairs.
That's correct, yep. So the stairs that are shown here in this plan, they've.
I was gonna say, that's 2 feet.
Yep.
Great.
And so the steps are not being done
No,
at this
just
time.
the- That's right.
Yep.
Great. This would be a great improvement.
If you go down to the
Those are the real things.
right
to left,
these
are the blocks.
David, look at those.
And from what I understand, those are the actual stones that will be used.
I'd like to find those in the woods somewhere, yeah. Piled up neatly.
Good.
All righty.
These are not cheap, but we want.
No, I know. I've actually purchased one huge one for a project. And I know.
And I also know that the design has been vetted by DPW. I know Michael Vieira has been in contact with Dave DeFosis, and the design has been all vetted through that. So at least with that, we're good. I think the one final thing is that we would just need to make sure that, once we have the approval here, that, we make sure that if you're in the city right of way, that we just get approval for that. So I think we've already started that process. So yes. So we'll be in touch following tonight, and we'll let you know the next steps on that.
Approval to change the fence, just to replace it with wood.
Okay.
We're not doing that yet.
Right. Yep. So we can, we can talk about that.
That's a good choice you've made there.
Thank you.
It's a valuable neighborhood. You're welcome.
All right, so we'll move right on to number 4, 70 Maplewood Avenue. There are 8 total changes in design to this previously approved project. So I'll just run down the list really quickly here. We have some window dimensions that have been changed, storefront dimensions, the garage door height, the penthouse window dimensions, and then there's an added door on the penthouse as well. The penthouse eave detail, clarification on that. The elevator appurtenance height has been increased due to overrun. It's for manufacturer's equipment. Minor window and door location updates. We'll see those on the elevations. And then mechanical grills as well. All right. So,
There's quite a bit of little things.
quite a bit of little things, yes. So we have some window dimensions that have narrowed, as you can see. That would be kind of these windows here and also here along this elevation. And then the storefront windows, it looks like they have narrowed as well. And there's also been a door added where this window was previously approved.
Isaac, on 1.2, on the left-hand side, it looks like some windows have separated. They were used to be next to each other, and now they're spaced apart.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, so as we scroll down, yes, their windows have been separated here as well in this elevation. And then also you'll see, Margot, on the approved versus the one that's before us, this row of windows has been narrowed as well. As you can see down here, this would be the mechanical sort of rail screening here. So we've added that. And louvers as well. And more just window and door adjustments. Here would be the roof detail in more clear fashion. So it looks like we have just some minor moving of windows on that top detail. All right. Do we have any questions or comments on those changes? There are lots of them. They do seem to be fairly minor, but there are lots of little changes, so.
I think for me, the biggest, most obvious change is the window adjustment, and I think it's, it's unfortunate, especially on the Maplewood Avenue elevation, because we are suddenly getting a lot more brick wall. And tiny little windows in that brick wall. So, and that's a major elevation on Maplewood Avenue. So, I don't know if,
I wonder if the architect would consider making the windows bigger, one big versus two tiny, or if that would be better or not.
maybe we could understand why it's.
We have someone here to speak to this.
Good evening, Carla Goodnight from CJ Architects. Just wanted to review with you that the windows have remained the same height, and that in the original approval, they were 5 feet wide, and now they're 4 feet wide, so they're still pretty large. Just by comparison, they're smaller than they were originally, and that was just operationally, we didn't want to use the kind of push-out ones. We wanted to use something that actually opened. So we're looking at that. And then the smaller windows on the Maplewood side, where you're looking at that, were just modified for plan changes. Again, that's track up against the track side, so we're trying to place in the interior plan developments, we're trying to place things like, more support spaces like laundry and bathrooms and things like that, so that there aren't bedrooms, along those walls if possible. I mean, there are some, obviously, but we're trying to minimize that.
Can I ask a question, Reagan? Do you feel that it's just the missing window itself? Do you feel, or the amount of more brick that is the problem? Because obviously one thing that could be done is they could be left the way that they were and be turned into more of a spandrel type of glass, if you know what I'm trying to say.
I
That's
do.
the correct word.
I think what bothers me most is on this one, the right side, that that
Yes.
bay there just has,
Yeah.
seems like a blank brick wall with tiny windows. So, I don't know if even just like, you know, where we have like sort of recessed brick openings that look like a window should be there, but it's bricked in, might help just break up that wall. I don't know.
I'll interject this. I think looking at the two designs, you also have to consider what it's in proximity to, and it's in proximity to the Heinemann Publishing Building, which is all glass. So if you take your original proposal as approved, you've got a lot more glass there, which is more consistent with the Heinemann Building, which is pretty close to it. The proposal, you've got a lot less glass, so it's not as consistent. And the other thing I would add, if you're thinking about cutting down on glass, then the railway elevation side, and I say that because we actually live about 5 minutes from there, and trust me, every night at about 11 p.m. when that train goes through and blows its whistle, if I was in that building, I would want less windows on the railway side.
Well, this is that's the Maplewood elevation.
Right, no, I mean,
Right.
I'm talking about both slides. I'm talking about the Maplewood slide here, but then looking down at the railway elevation slide. That would be the one, I think, that if you needed to reduce a window or two, you know, the railway side, but not the Maplewood side.
Yeah, I see what you mean. There
I
is
think before we waste any more time, do we have more opinions on this?
Just, my first impression is that, yes, it's less glass, but it looks more like a warehouse. It looks more traditional. So to me, the smaller punched openings almost have more of a historic feel than what was proposed, which was more of a, you know, very much a residential apartment building. So for that sake, I can support the change.
Another opinion?
I think I was just sort of forming the phrase on that exact comment, is that this building has a great deal of identical windows. So it's nice to see just a few of anomalies like you would see in a historic warehouse building.
Dan?
I was just going to add that the features that I've liked to make this look industrial and hook in with the railroad continue, so I could accept a little extra brick and smaller windows on that one side.
Okay, should we pull this out, or are you going to be satisfied? And then, okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. We will move on. We could probably look at 5 and 6 kind of in a combined manner. It's 500 Market Street Unit 10R and 500 Market Street Unit 12R. They're for replacing windows and patio doors on both units, different sets of windows and doors. However, it's the same condo building. And essentially the windows and the door that they're proposing are basically in kind. We had thought that there might have been a blanket approval on file. We could not find that. And so therefore, we just had them to be this window here, this top window as well, and then I believe this patio door. And this is Unit 10R. Be Anderson. The only difference is that there'll be sliding windows, and that's just for egress purposes for that unit. As we move on to 12R, this is force and also a patio door. As you can see, we've just got photos. Some of that will be, the bay windows, etc. All of the windows that are chosen will match what is currently there.
So,
And they've
I'd just like to say something about these two. I have no problem with the replacing of those windows. However, I'm noticing on Unit 10R that there is a structural element that's been added after the fact, that I don't remember ever coming in front of us, ever seeing any approval. I've got a feeling that it was put there for some,
I think they did come back to us for.
Just
those
that one
decks.
unit?
No. I think they're
I don't remember these.
decks.
It's
The-
there's one 2x4 underneath it. It's a LVL
Yeah.
bolted to the structure. It's obviously holding it up, that.
Here on the side, John?
Yeah.
Left.
That. It's got nothing to do with our administrative approval, but would you please put a check on that so that we check on
Sure,
that?
sure.
Thank you.
Yep. Other than that, any questions with the two units at 500 Market Street? Okay. Great. We'll move right on down to number 7. That's 48 South Street. So as you can see, I took a couple of photos from Google Maps from about 2011. You can kind of see, how good the siding looks and windows. As we get to now, we have some, rot repair that needs to be done. Windows need to be replaced. So the applicant is here to replace the windows at the property and also to repair most of the, looks like the siding. I do apologize for the long Marvin Elevate package in the admin approvals. I tried to take that out, it did not save that way. However, the applicant is proposing to use the Marvin Elevate windows, and they are proposing to keep the exact same pattern that is there now. I believe there was just a question on if it was all of the windows or exactly which windows would be changed out, and then if the commission does have any other questions.
My name's Lou Harriman, and I am Kathleen's neighbor across the street. And maybe the board will remember that there have been many approvals of our house at various times over the last 46 years. But to savor the angst of testifying in front of this august body in a quasi-judicial thing, I thought I would explain. The project is 2 sides of the house, not 4.
Okay.
It is, as you face the house, the front of the house.
Yep.
And also the left-hand side.
Okay.
And so the hideous photos that you see there are of that left-hand side. And if you scroll down to the other photo that you so nicely took, that one, and then keep on going to that little beauty right there, this explains why this siding needs to be dealt with. So at the moment, it is siding and windows for those 2 sides.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
Could I ask you one question, Mr. Harriman?
Please.
Is it storm windows on those?
There are storm windows on some of the windows on the house, and not all. And the storm windows vary a bit in their character.
Okay, thank you.
The replacement windows, or the new windows you're putting in, the specifications say that full screens are standard and half optional. If we could just stipulate that they'd be half screens?
Of course.
Yeah.
And are they going to be, it looks like they come in white or black. Are we white? Is that what we're choosing?
It's probably going to be white. Yeah, that's white. Matching exactly what's there now. Yeah.
Mr. Harriman, for clarification, in the process of replacing the siding, what kind of siding is it going to be replaced with?
Same old, same old. It's wood siding. It's
There are many kinds of wood siding, sir.
whether it's, I don't know whether we know whether it's clear cedar or not.
It's sharp edge clapboard. It looked like pine. Is why I mentioned that. And it's not that it's unheard of or uncommon, but a lot of people don't do that. They also, so like my question is, do you know the kind of species and whatnot?
I'm not sure that we do. Do we know whether it's pine or cedar? Cedar, okay. But whether the edge profile of that, I don't know that we know that at this point.
Well, if it's cedar, we do though, don't we? Because
Yeah.
all of manufactured cedar is round edge.
Yeah, but I just recently purchased some pine clapboards, and they're round edge now also.
Is that going to be acceptable?
I
Okay.
Only know that the cedar that we put on our house that you approved long ago is fairly sharp edge. It's narrow reveal and so forth, but it's cedar and it's sharp edge.
Thank you very much.
Yep, okay, great.
So the understanding is that they're going to be replacing these as close to as in kind as possible. So the reveal would be the same, and the board type would be
There's
the
a-
same, and the trim would be the same, and the
Just to
profile.
throw this out, if we're having that conversation, it's a highly spirited reveal program that they utilized on this when they reclapboarded this building in the late 70s, mid to late 70s, I'd say. And there's quite a variation in reveal. It's not a particularly historic thing, but if they're only doing part of the building, you wonder what that's going to leave us with. Moving right along.
Okay, very good.
Just a quick question, because I did not have a chance to get there to look at it myself. Are these original windows or not?
From what I understand, they're
Okay.
Brosco
Original Broscos
windows.
from the 70s.
Gotcha,
Yep,
thank you.
yep.
The aluminum tracked, classic.
The zinging traps.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, so we will move right along here. Next item is number 9. That's 40 Market Street. The applicant here is hoping to install an HVAC condenser, a Mitsubishi unit, which we've seen multiple times. It is for this top level unit, so it is proposed to go on the back side, fairly high up on the wall. The original location that was proposed was actually over on the side of the building, which would have been very visible from Market Street. So we were able to sort of convince the applicant that perhaps the rear of the building, where the opposite side is the parking garage and there's lots of mechanicals, trash enclosures, et cetera, that would be, a little bit more out of sight as a location. So that's what we are looking at. It will sort of just go directly into the unit as it's at the same height as the unit. We will move right along. 795 Middle Street, number 10 on our list. They had come before us a few months, it just wasn't the approved design. So, same material. It appears to be, the same spacing, just like I said, just without the scallop top. So, all right, we can move right along. Number 11 is 111 State Street. So again, this is just a few items, changes to a few items from a previously approved design. So I'll just quickly run through what those are. So the rear addition of the shed dormer over the egress stair has been increased, I do believe. So it will sit 12 inches closer to the wall below. The roof pitch has changed. The elevator overrun has been raised by 12 inches. There's a new proposed door on the Sheaf Street porch. The proposed door on the Sheaf Street porch is replaced with 2 6/6 windows. My apologies. Proposed window on the Sheaf Street infill addition, second, third floors. 4 side windows shifted further apart, and then remove the 2 center windows. Item number E, small third-story windows at proposed addition, so changed from 6/6 to 6/3 to match existing third-story dormer. Added a bike rack at the rear porch and added a roof access hatch. And I will go through a couple of those items now so you can see the new roof hatch and the elevator overrun on the top here. And this is just showing the increased height there. It's also the new door. We have the new window design here, as well as at the dormer, and the bike rack is shown there as well. And so this just, again, just shows those areas of where those items will be. And if I've missed anything, Tracy, please let me know. Otherwise, does anyone have any comments? There are a few little changes. We've seen a few other changes come before us for this building. So just kind of part of
I guess the obvious question on
Yeah.
this, as far as Sheaf Street goes, has there been any change in the footprint of this building?
It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, it doesn't, but maybe Tracy can clear that up for us quickly.
Good evening, Tracy Kozak. No change to the footprint.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty.
All right, great. We'll continue right on. Number 13 is 33 Johnson Court. The applicant here is simply asking to, here's an existing second floor deck structure. They are asking to replace the current wooden decking and also railing with a Trex material. As their current decking and railing material is starting to show signs of rot and age. And so does anyone have questions on that? They do have a spec. Sorry, 1 second. Here is a sample of the actual decking itself, and then also the railing. And that is, from what I understand, the rear of the building. Okay. Number 14 is 113 Daniel Street. So the applicant here is seeking approval for the removal of the existing chimney at the property. The chimney currently is closer to the rear of the building on sort of a flat sloped roof portion where the red dot is located there. Here's a photo on that flat part that shows the chimney. It is visible from Daniel Street if you're on the sidewalk walking, and there are no proposals for a faux chimney to be put back in its place at this time. And I know we do have the applicant here if anybody has questions on, I believe the reasoning is that they're having water damage from the chimney, and so the idea is to get that sealed up hopefully before we start having ice issues with that. But again, if there's further questions for the applicant, we might be able to ask.
I guess I looked at the wrong chimney,
Yeah,
because there are two.
it's hard to see, it's right.
And that's a big chimney to take off.
It is big. 3 floors.
It's not very visible from most other places.
Oh, we have someone here to speak on this?
Yes, I'm Jason Stiles, the owner at 113. I'm taking it down because my neighbors next door at 121, one of the bricks fell on their property. So I was told by Jason Page, got a hold of me, and I'm trying to help out because it's not used for anything, just trying to bring it down to like 1 foot so it won't fall onto their property. It's just falling apart. So I'm just trying to help out with the safety of my neighbors and just trying to just take it down so before the winter hits and trying to just take care of it so there's no problems with it. It's falling apart.
Sorry, so did you say you only want to take part of it down, or
Well,
take all
I
of
think
it?
it should be, I mean, it could be flat, but if you brought it just down to like 1 or 2 feet,
Oh, off the ground?
from
the
brought
roof.
down
Oh, from
to
the
the
roof,
roof,
okay.
to there, just left it there.
Yeah, where it's a little bit more stable.
Yes, exactly, because it's falling. They've already had a brick go in their yard.
Yeah.
So that's why they notified Jason about it, and I'm just trying to be
That-
helpful for my neighbors.
Well, there's removal and there's removal, so now I understand what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Thank
Just
you.
partial, yeah.
Partial
And
removal.
just maybe another clarifying question. Would you try to replicate the current top of the chimney after you remove it
Yeah.
down couple of feet.
Yeah.
To match sort of what it looks
Yeah, I'd
like
like to
now.
make it look good. It's not just be open, it's gonna be, yeah, look
Okay.
just like that,
Okay.
just mark down that
Yep.
part.
Just.
Yeah.
Just okay.
Yeah.
Great. That's a much more clarification. Thank you. I
problem.
appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I believe that that's it, isn't it?
Yes, no, what about the one more?
Just one last one. Yep. Thank you. Sorry. One last one, John. 411, the Hill. So this applicant is seeking the installation of 2 HVAC condensers at the property. They side of the structure here and also here. These are not installed yet. The applicant has simply put them into the places that they are proposing to go to give us a sort of realistic rendering. So this is one location. There is some vegetation screening that, of course, that's seasonal. So we'll have to take that into consideration. This is a harder, view to see it from, but again, seasonal from the other side.
So
And
which
then-
side is more visible?
So, yep, John, 1 second, let me go back up to, so this side here, that on the corner of High Street and this back way into Port Walk there, this is the one that's more heavily vegetated.
Okay. Left-hand side from the front.
Yeah, if you're looking at the front, the left-hand side, the right-hand side is the one, I'll show you just a second, is this one that's in between those two sort of bushes. That one is obviously more visible than the other.
Yeah.
So I was thinking we could stipulate either more vegetative screening and or a wood option.
I think that I would like to see a wood screening there, which is consistent with what we do, and vegetation can die and go away, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So you want to build a lump on both sides of the building? It's a
mean-
fairly visible building.
Yeah.
If you take the time to walk it, it's really, you get to every side of the building
Right.
pretty easily from the public way. The vegetation, right, the vegetation, as we all know, is temporary and fragile. But it just seems like, never mind.
I understand. I'm also trying to imagine big wooden boxes on either side of this building. I just don't know what is the lesser of two evils.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a box, it can just be a section of fence. Because you have those big bushes.
Okay.
Perhaps we need the applicant to, knowing that we want to have some sort of wooden screening, have them come back with how they would like to see it.
Sure, with a follow-up administrative approval for the screening.
I agree.
Okay. Would we be okay with them moving forward with the installation and to come back for screening?
That's good.
Okay, okay. Just so I can let them know. All right, so that concludes the admin approvals. I'll just quickly run down the list with the stipulations that we have, and then we can take a vote on that. So it would be items number 3 to 60 Marcy Street. Let's see. Or sorry, that one we pulled out. Item number 4, 70 Maplewood Avenue. Items number 5 and 6, 500 Market Street, Unit 10R, 500 Market Street, Unit 12R. Item 7, 48 South Street, which we stipulated to have half screens if they are to use them. Number 9 is 40 Market Street. Number 10, 795 Middle Street. Number 11, 111 State Street. Number 13, 33 Johnson Court. Number 14, 113 Daniel Street. And just to reiterate, that is not a complete removal. It is a removal of the top couple of feet of the chimney, just to make that very clear. And number 411, The Hill, stipulation that the applicant returns with screening, wood screening for both condensers. Please, if I missed anything, feel free to.
I would just like to point out, in case people think I'm blind, that, I'm looking at the administrative approvals on my iPad, and there is no 114 Hill.
I think I may have just missed the
No, that's all
bookmark
right.
on that, but yes,
I'm
you
just-
are not wrong.
I am not blind.
You're not blind, for the record.
Okay.
All right, so I guess we would be looking for a vote on those, that list of admin approvals with those particular stipulations.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
All righty.
Okay.
So, we have our public hearing. Old business, petition of 202 Court Street Property Group LLC owner for property located at 202 Court Street, wherein permission is requested to allow exterior renovations to an existing structure. Install HVAC condensers with fencing and roof-mounted solar panels as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 116 as Lot 35 and lies within Character District 4-L1 and the Historic District. Who here is to speak to this?
Hi, good evening. Matt Silva, Profile Homes. I'm representing 202 Court Street today. Just a quick administrative item. I uploaded 2 of the same files separated by an hour and realized today when I went to print this off that there was an item that was missing on that. Isaac has printed that and put that here. So your packets may be missing 1 item in there related to gas lighting, I believe is what it was. But we'll start the discussion and certainly hear your feedback on that. The first item on the list for us to discuss is our HVAC equipment. The owners that have purchased the units inside the building have selected to go with air source heat pump units. These units are going to be located in large part on the front of the building, which will be shielded by a fence, which we'll get into in a moment. There is 1 unit that will be exposed that is on the far, as you are looking at the building from the Court Street side. It's all the way in the back. And that is because the distance that it can serve for the back unit, those line sets are only manufacturer spec to go a certain distance. So we'll have 1 that will be back there. That is quite a distance off of any building that it can be seen. The Citizens Bank building on the corner, of course, and then the Pleasant Street commercial building location for Prue Real Estate is there, but that building is set back quite a ways. So that is item 1 in the HVAC. Those will actually be, 1 will be mounted to the building, the other will be mounted to the fence that's going in the front of the building that shields off that side. So never really will be seen clearly from any one particular location. It will be shielded by fencing. As we get in, that, as it noted, was approved by the ZBA when we had originally set forth on this application, so we do have relief for that as well already. The second item, which will probably foster some discussion, is the fencing on the unit. So as you can see in the rendering there, we have a white cedar fence that is going up in that section of the building. Off to the left-hand side as you're looking at it from Court Street. The building that's next door to that has a fence that is just a horizontal black painted fence. We don't have any opposition to that fence, but we thought it would be a good idea. This has always been on our renderings, but it's never really been discussed as to what was going there. So before we get into a tripping hazard here, we wanted to get the feedback from the board as to whether they'd like to see what is depicted in the rendering, which would be more of a clear stained cedar, or if they would like to see us match the black fence that's next door and keep some continuity there. So I'll leave that up for you and for discussion from there. That fence is really just primarily shielding what will be used as trash receptacles and, of course, the HVAC equipment. It really serves no other purpose other than that. There's an emergency egress access point on that side of the building, but that will be a gated fence. So unless there's no questions related to that yet, I'll continue on to the next item on our list, which are the solar panels. When we first met and discussed the option of doing solar, every home that our company builds particularly is designed to be a net zero home. So with this particular project, we don't do a lot of multifamilies, but it was originally brought up by the board. I think, John, actually it was your first comment, and I think it was favored by other members that potentially we would add solar panels to the building. It was never defined inside any of the actual administrative approvals or otherwise, so we're bringing it to your attention today to show the look through our solar installer as to where the roof of that building. That is the most visible side of the building as you're traveling, so it is something that, you know, will be well seen. It is something that's very, very much favored by the unit purchasers themselves as they've switched most of the items for, at least for heating and cooling inside their home, to be electric. They'd like to be able to offset that as much as possible and make this building as close to net zero as they can. The next item here are a couple of architectural changes to the exterior of the building that involve windows and clarification on venting. So on my sheet, and my eyes are terrible, this is, Isaac, I think this is where we might have a...
Yep, so this is the document that Matt had got to me just a little before the meeting. I'm going to switch over now.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about the HVAC, same fence plan. As you can see, solar panels here. So I think
this is where we got
left
cut off. Yeah. So so on the rendering, or excuse me, on the elevation that you see, the top visual, it shows two windows that are listed beside each of the doors that reach those decks that are on the second floor. You really can, these also are, you can't see this from the Court Street side. You can not really even see it from the Pleasant Street side. This is not a necessity for egress. Obviously, there's a doorway right next to it. It's an architectural change that was requested by the building owners. As well as on that same elevation on the top, you'll see one window that's down on the lower left-hand side. Thank you. That window right there has been requested by the owner as well of that particular unit. As we scroll down just a little bit further, there is a window that has been added that you can see I've listed as added window. So where there were originally just 3 windows at the top, there's a 4th window that's put in there. Architecturally, it's lined up with the window that's below it. I would have requested that we line all the windows up. You can see if you look at the bottom row of windows versus the top, there's one that's missing. The reason the one that is missing there was intentional. There's a stairway that's in that place, so we wouldn't be able to put one in that location anyway. So at this point in time, we're really just looking to line up as many windows as we can on that elevation. Due to a cabinet layout concern, the owner for the downstairs unit is looking to eliminate that 1/3 window that is there. And then, as I've listed, there is a stove vent location brought forward to us by the building inspector to make sure that we have that signed off. That's going to be a typical 8-inch square ducted stove vent. We're going to paint it to match the exterior of the building. It will all blend in, but to be official, we wanted to make sure that we get that passed off.
It's not, it's a vent hood.
It's correct. It's a range hood. Yeah.
Okay, thank
yeah.
you.
Sorry, thank you. Not a wood stove vent.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. As far as windows and venting goes, on that item, we're good. If we scroll down a little bit further, so this is something that I had always wanted to do. It's just a question on whether the owners of the building would agree to continuing this. So in this picture, you can see where I've highlighted and circled, there used to be an old gas lantern that lit the alleyway. Of course, it probably didn't light the alleyway, but it was original to the building. When the Bakers owned that, they had an old sign there that said, "Watch for falling ice." They used the same arm that was used for this gas lantern that's there. So we are looking to, this is an example, it's not a sized example, but as similar as we can get to that original gas lantern there. The 2 purchasers of the units, the upstairs unit and the downstairs unit, have both agreed that they'd be willing to support in paying for that, and then in continuation support the gas that would be going in order to light that, and then likely transfer that same to the front door. They'd like to use whatever they use on the side to be used for lighting the both sides of the front door with a gas lantern.
So would there be, so 3 total gas lanterns?
We could, so I
Or
would ask that
one
we
on
do-
either of the door, and then would there be one on the side that's shown, or is that just to show where it used to be?
Nope.
As
So the one on the side is the one that we primarily want to make sure we
Okay.
get.
Yeah.
The 2 that are to the sides of the front door as you
Yeah.
enter the building would be something we would also like to do.
Got it.
But
Okay.
this one seems to be the most important, since it is hanging off the side of the building. It's far more visual.
Isaac, can you scroll down a little bit just so we can
oh
see
yes,
the-
of course.
Thanks.
So that's a little bit more of an example of what would be, it's very hard to find that specific type. I've actually been looking at like antique purchasers that we can refurbish these from. So it's a long going thing. I think if the approval were to come from the board tonight to say, yes, we'll allow you to put the gas there so you can put it, send us back some information for an administrative approval of exactly what this would look like, I think I'd be satisfied we could continue to run the gas into those locations and run the voltage wiring that we need to close the building up.
I think that's fine. Good idea.
Okay.
So you're essentially going from the 19th century to the 21st century
As quietly as possible?
and using a bit of the technology of everything.
Right, right. Yes, that's the times we are in at this moment. So, but obviously, as I say, it's always open for discussion. But that
Yes,
concludes what I have here, so stay here for questions.
Are the solar panels only on the one side, the visible side?
Nope, that's the only side they'll go on. Yeah, that's as primarily south as we can get.
Is that the side facing the fire station?
Correct.
Yes.
Do you know how roughly how many panels we're looking at there total?
In terms of the layout,
Just-
I don't. It's about what we can maximize. So the upstairs unit is the primary unit that's going to be shown in blue. They'll probably take up about 500 square feet of roof space that would go into that area right there. That transfers to really only about 8 panels or so. I mean, there'll be an even spread that will go on there. And then to the other side of the chimney that you see there, that would be what would primarily be located for the downstairs unit. Now, we have told both homeowners in our agreement that they have to both agree to do it. So they can't do one and then come back 3 years later and somebody else decides to put it. So either you both agree to do it, which they have, and then they would maximize what that space would be. So even though I have it listed to the right of that chimney that might be for the downstairs unit, they might be borrowing space on the other side of the chimney as well. So that's up for them, but that's just our dedicated spot. There would be all black panels that would go there. I realize I didn't give you a listing on that. That is what we use.
Okay.
I have no questions here. Yes, Martin?
Do you have an example of the fencing that you're,
So what we have is just that vertical white cedar. I didn't bring an example of it. That rendering I was hoping was going to show a clearer version of what that was going to be. But it would be, if I were to describe it to you, it would be a 6-inch or a 5.5-inch wide cedar that would just be, butted to each other. That would be the standard of what we would use. So more of a clear grain cedar. Or we switch over, which would be the horizontal black to match the unit next. If you were asking opinions, but
Is it something that we want to hold off on, that he would come back for administrative approval for the fence, or?
Probably just for specifications.
yeah, I can get a photo and show you. for
Just,
that.
Height,
Thanks.
style.
Yep.
Would there be anything else you might, just if you can roll, anything else into that admin approvals? Do we want to see
Well, the
maybe a
gas
mock-up
light,
of?
just the gas
Yep,
light.
the gas light, yep. So gas light and the fence specs.
Sounds great. Yep.
And anything else we would want to maybe see come back for admin approval?
I will just say that I am torn on the solar panels. I think we tried really hard to keep, I know there was a lot of discussion on the dormers and stuff, and we kept that side free of a dormer because that was the most visible side. And I'm trying to promote and see, you know, the use of more solar panels, but at the same time, we're trying in the historic district to make it as invisible as possible. So I might have a tough time with that large section of the most visible part of the roof being filled with solar panels. I don't know how much you could transfer to the back section behind the second chimney that is less visible, at least from Court Street. I don't know if you could put a bunch back there to make up for it.
Yeah, I can see your point with it. So the only negative to that side is I feel like it starts to look a little disjointed, where you're going to have some that's going to be on that high part where the tower used to be, and then you're going to have some that's going to be lower. And this is the, I think this is the, honestly, it's pretty painstaking to install because we now have this composite slate roof that's up there.
Right.
So that system is not easy. But it was once like we say, it was once a blanketed statement from the board that it would be something in favor of. And the homeowners that are there are really pushing to get it, both have electric vehicles and on the list goes. Where I say it's very visual, we're seeing this. I mean, you will see it, right? We've been staring at that building forever. I think it would be, I would only want to try and see if I could get this version approved, because I think if we try to move it into the back, or that whole back section where the lower garage door is, there's not really any roof space that's there that would be compatible to getting, like the panels would have to be run horizontally instead of, you know, on the vertical side. So that would be, I don't know, we'd have to chat through that.
Is the amount of solar panels anticipated to provide electricity the sum total of the electric needs, or is it supplemental?
I haven't done the full engineering on it, but I would tell you that from my expertise on this, that space right there will not provide the total that those units need. So the unit upstairs is about 3,200 square feet. That would usually itself require like a 17 kilowatt or more solar array. Right there, you're talking about probably about 6 in between the chimneys, and maybe 4.5 after that, with a high density panel that's there. So it is supplemental.
John?
Yes, Martin.
I would just, my impression was that the fire station was so close to the building you wouldn't see them as much. Maybe we add that to a stipulation before blanket approval. This way we can punt it down the road and
Sure.
get you going.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I like to see some sort of rendering of what it would look like, take a photograph from Court Street, look at it, show on, try and Photoshop it just to see what would actually be visible.
Right. I added it in case it would avoid another trip here, but we can send that over to you.
Hey, you're always welcome.
I love you all, but you must be, you probably never thought you'd see me again.
Yeah, I feel like what we've been provided is just sort of your sketch of what you're looking at, but I think we would want to see the exact placement, the size, the material, and the calculations that go along with that.
Sounds good.
And to extrapolate on what Karen was saying, and I think what she was saying too, but to see from standing on that sidewalk, photographically looking up at the building, what you're going to see and what you're not going to see. And if it's just a supplemental solar panel, then maybe they don't need that one in the middle. Just throwing that out there.
All right, if there's no more questions, I'm going to ask the public. All right, would anybody in the public like to comment on this? I want to remind you, there's a 3-minute limit on your initial comment. If you need to make another comment after, then it'll be an additional 2 minutes. So would somebody like to comment on this project?
Hearing nobody else wanting to bother with this, sure. Again, my name is Lou Harriman. I live at 57 South Street. And I'm puzzled by what the applicant said, is that this is going to be quite visible from Court Street. I really question that. Yeah, the front part of that where there's no solar panel, I think probably be able to see that. But I think you're very wise to say, let's sketch this up from Court Street using SketchUp or something else, because I don't think you're going to see a thing. And of course, this is a tiny amount of power compared to what those guys are going to need to reach net zero. That said, how else are you going to get the power? You're going to be burning coal to get it. So just a thought there in terms of sustainability and decarbonization. So something to think about.
Or anyone else? Or anybody online via Zoom? Or
I don't see any hands.
okay, so I'm going to close this public hearing and look for a motion. We can have more discussion if you want. I believe that we probably will be pulling the panels out. Is that something as a stipulation?
I do believe we have the stipulation to come back for admin approval for the solar panel specs, the gas lanterns, and the fencing, final fencing
Okay, 3
detail. So, if anyone else wants to expand on that, or if we're okay with that, then
I'll make the motion to approve this application as presented. Mainly, I think we're approving windows. at this point.
HVAC, condensers,
Yeah.
a fence, and a window.
Right,
and then
And-
the specs will come back.
right.
for us.
The specs for the fence and all that stuff will come back. But,
Is there a
so,
second?
I'll second that.
Any other discussions or comments about
A
this?
comment, I think we're taking the correct path
All right,
in
very
this.
good.
it has conservation and enhancement of property values, and has compatibility of innovative technologies surrounding properties.
Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You have your partial approval. All right, good luck. Stay warm. Excuse me, everybody. Okay, another work session, public hearing was requested by 129 State Street, and I don't understand the work session app.
If the applicant, I know we moved on to the public hearing last time. I think it was a miscommunication in the last email. I don't know, Howard, if you want to do the work session versus go right into it.
It was just that you'd asked us for a lot of additional details, so we just want to work through, show you the details in the work session, and then if there's any questions.
Very sorry. Okay, I'm very sorry. Not familiar with how to start this thing. Stop it. Okay.
So just that we gathered a lot of, we requested us to bring back details and copies, so we put together a 53-page book.
Oh, do you have 11 copies of that book?
I've got 5. You've got it on,
Yeah.
it's what was submitted.
Yeah.
That's all
Yeah.
that's in there. Okay.
So you'd asked us to put the whole thing together, so I thought it might be easier around like
I think we could do this,
I think
if we can do it efficiently.
from up here.
I would like to do it from
Yeah.
up here.
I think so. It's fine. Thank you.
Somebody had a tough meeting.
It seems that we have everything that's in your book on the screen.
I'll take a book. I'll work so hard, I might as well.
Well, actually, I'd like a book also.
Oh, geez, yeah, so look at them.
Be selling them later on.
I am. eBay, Portsmouth. district stuff. Big money,
With spiral binders.
even more valuable. You gotta get one. You'll get one. You don't want one. So where are we now?
So are we going then to public hearing and no
Yes.
work session, or?
You have to read out the.
Simply because it was advertised, I would suggest that somebody make a motion to close the work.
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So we are now entering a public hearing for 129 State Street. And who is here to,
John, did you read it all into the record?
I did,
You did?
didn't I?
No.
Yes, I did.
Okay, good.
I don't think so.
I think we stopped after work session, public hearing. Just for,
Okay,
no,
you're right.
just for record's sake.
I stopped at the question mark of work session. All right, public hearing requested by 129 State Street LLC owner for property located at 129 State Street, wherein permission is requested to allow exterior renovations to an existing structure, modifications to windows, skylights, door, canopy, railing design, size, and location, as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 107 as Lot 47 and lies within Character District 4 and the Historic Districts. Okay, now, let's start over. Who is here to present this?
Hello, good evening. My name is Howard Spivak. I'm the architect for 129 State Street.
Welcome.
Could I ask, we ended the last meeting with a question that we were going to ask
Yes.
legal about, so I was going to ask if you could
Let's
update
get this
us.
out of the way.
The question was over whether this was to be considered a new application or whether this was simply a the legal department has found that this is in fact going to just be focused on those specific changes, as the previous approval is still standing even while we are going after this. These changes could have been presented to us as administrative approvals, as we've seen earlier in the night at 111 State Street and 70 Maplewood Ave. They've come back numerous times for multiple revisions, more in scope than these items here. We feel that we actually went above and beyond by renoticing the work sessions and public hearings to give folks ample time to speak to the listed items.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So further to the last hearing, you request us to put it together in a nice package. And then Isaac, Dave Adams had asked through Isaac for a number of items. So first section, proposed modifications, which show. We then have a section of details where we've shown details of the section of materials. And then the last section of the presentation is the original approved application. So we've tried to put it together in one nice package for you.
Okay.
This is what, sorry, we went through this last time, but we'll go again. The drawing on the left is what was approved in originally in 2022. Here you see what the revisions are. The dimensions of the overall envelope are exactly the same as they were approved. Next page, please. This is on the elevations. You see again the dimensions of what was approved and proposed are exactly the same. You see the changes of the clear story windows that we've talked about within the wood framing, the columns which you'll see on another drawing, and that we've taken out the ridge vent skylight here, which you'll see more detail in the following drawings. Okay, again, on the left is the approved, on the right is the revised, the changing from the wood to the steel windows, the railing, which we have a detail of, the clear story windows, the railing, and then the rest of the masking is the same, the changing of the columns, which we'll see in more detail in the next pages. Again, the HDC original, the changes, the reconfiguration of the windows here, the revisions of the windows upstairs, the clear story windows, and again, the revision down there. On the roof plan, the removal of the oculus, the skylights with the flush with the roof, which you'll see the detail of, which matches the mock-up that we did in the last hearing. And then the window on the west elevation. And then this describes the differences. So we've gone from the oculus to a low-profile roof. The skylight here, the ridge skylight's taken off. The revision of the proportions of the windows, new custom garage doors, which you'll see later, the columns, which again in the detail section, you'll see the details of those. They're changing from the wood and glass doors to the steel, the hoops windows, the railing, which you see here, and then there's a detail of it there, and then the wood doors on the second floor. Again, the removal of the oculus up above, going to the skylight, and then you'll see the dimensions here of the revised and the dimensions of the originally approved are the same. The renderings, the artist rendering originally approved, and the rendering based on the model. Again, the approved rendering and then the revised rendering. The parking study. If the overhang doesn't happen, the revised alternate, if the overhang doesn't happen. And now we're into details. So the first detail you'll see is the detail of the railing on the terrace. We're picking up an element here, which picks up the element that's on the fence down on the street, which has these columns of 4 pieces that create a low tower. They then get supported on top of the steel structure, and then you have railing sections that span in between them, which are made up of a 1.5-inch piece and then a 3/8 piece in between. So it's again referring to the railing design that's on the street. It'll be steel and it'll be custom painted. And the nice thing that's the way we've detailed it is that it all comes in sections and can be screwed together on the site. This is the skylight detail where you see it flush with the roof. It comes in. There's a flashing detail. We have the parapet wall shown here. You have every few courses a header brick, and then the through-wall flashing connects in for both the 129 and the neighboring property. This is a detail above the existing cornice where we're putting a sloped lead copper cover on top of it to protect it. Then this is the siding for the addition, for the new windows, and then you see the roof insulation. And this piece will have a lead-coated copper here. And this is the section when you're above the roof, when we have to put the roof insulation in, the lead-coated copper slopes up, and then there's a 2-inch piece of lead copper exposed to protect the edge of the roof. And this is how we maintain the line at the edge of the roof along State Street and then pitch it so that the shingles go up and it floats in. In the next page. And this is the way these are the details for the fire-rated lot line windows, where the fire-rated glass is in line with the fire-rated exterior sheathing.
Sorry, Howard, if you could just refrain from actually touching
yes.
the screen. Sorry. Yeah, that's why.
Okay, sorry.
That's why different things are happening. No worries. Just.
Sorry. So we have the glass, which is a fire-rated glass.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, you mean I can now touch it?
No, don't touch it.
No.
What?
No, still don't touch it, please.
I won't touch it. You have the fire-rated glass that is in line with the LP board, which is a 1-hour fire-rated sheathing. You then have the 2 inches of exterior Rockwell insulation. You then have the wood trim on the exterior that will then match a double hung window, and then you have the wood trim on the interior. And then there's a similar, and this is the section. And we've now got proposals from several window companies, and we're now planning on going with Little Harbor windows for the windows in the house. So that'll make it easy for them to do the custom. This is a blow up of the detail of the porch. We're going to have a 5-inch granite curb, which will match the granite along State Street in the flame-like granite. We'll then have square granite bases on top of that for the bottom of the columns, and then the columns, we have a spec later on, in a few pages later for that. Along the side of the house and on the garage, we're then also doing a granite piece underneath the wall, and then the cedar siding, square edge, stained. And then this is the roof detail with the gutter. It's a 6-inch gutter, lead-coated copper, cedar shaking, cedar fascia board, and again, the airspace in the Rockwell insulation, the fire-rated board, and the insulation on the inside. And then the garage doors will be a custom-made garage door in mahogany. And then we go into the materials. This is the Hope Steel window package for the solarium. This is the column that we're using that is tapered. These are the lights we're proposing. This would be the gas light on either side of the main entrance door in the garden. This would be on either side of the doors on the porch above the solarium, and these will be above the garage doors. And then the material board, the granite for the base, the brick which will match the existing brick, the lead copper roof and lead copper gutters, and then we have the cedar shake square edge, the cedar siding square edge stained.
Mr. Spivak,
Yeah.
I've got a question, just really for myself. So now we're looking at gas lighting for a couple outside fixtures here.
There were existing gas light fixtures on either side of the front door.
Can you just tell me how they compare? What's the advantage, or is there an advantage besides them being aesthetically pleasing and more expensive? What else is there to these that you might be able to tell me?
The client liked that he had gas light lamps on either side of his entrance doors, and he wants to continue having gas fired.
So do they
strictly
put out
aesthetic.
less light than small LED looking lights that, you know?
Yeah, they probably give off less. They probably give about the same, depending on the output of the gas, probably about the same. I guess it also depends on the LED lamp you pick, because you can get the LED lamps at different outputs.
Okay.
But
I'm sorry to disrupt you.
No, then quite okay. It's something he just requested.
Yeah, okay.
So this gives us our material palette. Here's a cut sheet for the Little Harbor windows and Little Harbor doors. So everything will be custom made by Little Harbor. And then this is the slate shingle, the synthetic slate shingles that you saw in the previous application, that you saw in the mock-up.
With these Little Harbor vinyl on the outside?
No, and then that's just to say, and now you're in to the, we can go through this. This is what was approved, and this is the actual copy of the submission from May of 2022.
I'd ask a question about the solarium.
Yes.
Any part of these windows open in such a way that they need to have screening?
No, they're just all we have is doors.
Just doors, okay. So if they get open, the mosquitoes come in, that's it? Okay.
Yes.
It's a city.
Or if they choose to put screens in, the screens will have to go on the inside, not the outside. Because the doors swing out, so we couldn't put screens on the outside anyways.
Okay, thank you.
Is that the same with all the other double-hung windows?
The double hung windows, I haven't asked, we haven't gotten an answer from the client if they want screens, but they do, they'll only be half screens. So what we tried to do is put everything into one package, and
Thank you.
hopefully we succeeded.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions before we lose them here?
I had just one possibly foolish question, but in your building this, we've talked for some time, it actually may have even approved the parapet construction. But I want just a question. In the process of building that parapet, are you going to take responsibility for flashing the roof of your next-door neighbor?
Yes, in the agreement that when the parapet was approved, they negotiated with the neighbors, and part of that agreement was us flashing the roof in when we do the new parapet.
Okay, thank you. It just never came to me before that you're doing work on someone else's property in the process of trying to rectify this line between the two.
Right. No, that was something that was negotiated.
And any other questions here? Okay, so I'm going to open this up to the public. If anybody has any comments, questions about this project?
Jim Keene, 123 State Street, we're the direct abutter. Just a couple comments. In your HDC submittal requirements, there's something for this type of project asking for a site plan. There's one view that shows a dotted line that could be the property line, but there's no dimensions to the edge of the building, the structure. I'm an engineer, a civil engineer, and there's nothing in there that's a site plan that I think would be important in a project that has such close proximity to other properties. My other comment would be the fire-rated windows. You guys, as the HDC, one of the biggest things that you comment on for almost every application is the windows. So my question would be, do these windows aesthetically meet your standards? And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else? You certainly have a right as a member of the public if you wanted to speak about that. Did you want to or not? You don't?
Does the commission want me to respond to the window or not?
Why not? You're here.
Where the exterior of the window is going to be made by Little Harbor, it's going to match the look of all the other double-hung windows on the house.
Okay. So, is there anybody online that would like to speak about this project?
I do not see anyone.
All right. I'm going to close this. Looking for a motion. Any more discussion if you want, or what have you?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I think there was a stipulation if they do use screens on the double hungs, just to be half screens.
Yes.
But
Provided
sorry to
that
interrupt.
stipulation.
Okay, with that stipulation.
I feel that the application is in keeping with the surrounding neighborhood. I know there's been a lot of discussion from the abutters that Shave Street is this particular type of street. To me, Shave Street is a two-sided street. There's your formal side, formal entrances, townhouse, kind of row house construction, and then you have your other side, which is sort of the backside of the houses off of State Street. And so I feel that this is in keeping with what is on that side of the street. I think the scale and the massing are appropriate. I know that this project has a bit of a modern sort of accents to it that weren't in the previous approved version. But I do believe that this it preserves the integrity of the district and is consistent with the special and defining character of the surrounding properties.
I'll second it, and just clarify that this is a vote on modifications to the original approval. And in my opinion, the modifications that have been presented are acceptable to the previously approved design.
Anybody else like to make a comment before I call for the vote?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to say that I'm pleased with the applicant's process I'm pleased with the thoroughness of this presentation. I still have an excessive amount of heartburn over the heavy-handed placement of the skylights, sectioning the roof of the building to the point that it looks unlike any other building in town. I'm also I'm incapable of no. I have no desire to see a row of windows sectioning the kitchenette into two halves. I think that that's a lovely thing to do. I've seen plenty of people in modern construction do it, but I don't think that it's appropriate with the special and defining character of its neighborhood and the buildings that surround it. So on those 2 points, I'm going to not support this application, but I do, at the same time, honestly applaud the applicant for his efforts.
Okay. So there again, I'd like to say that, Karen, you're voting on this. All right, very well. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
And the chair votes aye. So you have your application approved.
I would just like to say thank you for the process. I appreciated the process we went through.
All right, thank you. Okay. So don't let me forget anything in here. All right, this is the petition of Michael B. Myers and Stephanie G. Taylor, owners, for property located at 700 Middle Street, wherein permission is requested to allow the installation of rooftop mechanical equipment again. Solar panels as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 148, Lot 29, lies within General Residence A in the Historic District. And who is here to present this?
I'm Joseph DeLuca, the solar advisor that helped them draft up these plans. I'm from 603 Solar. They're both traveling right now, so they couldn't be here and asked me to come on their behalf.
That's fine. Present away.
So, starting out, I knew this was in the historic district, and I wanted to keep it as aesthetically pleasing as solar panels can be. But after doing some sort of analysis on the viable areas that we could put the panels, it came to the side of Aldrich Street. So, those 3 roof faces, to achieve as much as a carbon offset as we could, they are at a net zero with their electric usage at around 108% offset. So we did achieve what we came to do, but obviously that's up to you. We're on 3 separate roof faces that have 3 different pitches. So there's that larger main roof face that holds 18 of the panels. I might walk over here so I can guide you with that.
Don't touch the screen.
Don't touch the screen. I won't. So this is the steepest of the 3 pitches. That's where we have most of the panels, and that just wasn't enough to do it. So then we had to dispatch some of the panels to this lower roof face. It is a slightly shallower pitch. And then that still wasn't enough to do it. And putting panels on these roof faces just weren't ideal, because if you look at the street view on Google, and I have it pulled up on my computer if you'd like to look, there's 2 large trees in the front of the property that shade these sections, and then we never suggest going onto the northern side of the property or of the roof, just because we're in the northern hemisphere, and just based on where the sun travels, it's just not a good place to put panels. So for my expert opinion, I advise them to just go with these 3 sections, and they'll all be connected. We have most of the electrical equipment on the back side of the home. There's a fence that stands about 5 to 6 feet tall. I'm not too sure. But it does cover all of the electric equipment that would come down. The conduit would run down on this side of the house, similar to where the gutters are, and it would blend in with that area in respect to the electric equipment. There is an Envoy combiner box, which is kind of the brains of the whole system. That will most likely be located within the house by the electrical panel. It's a possibility that it could be put outside by the meter, but that is just up to the connectivity and the electrical engineer's discretion. So As far as the equipment that we'll be using, I heard another solar guy mention the all-black panels. We'll be doing the same thing. I have the spec sheets if you need them. I could pass my laptop around, and I also have photos of installs. Unfortunately, those are about 5.5 feet tall by 3.5 feet wide. They're all black with a black trim. There's about 1/4 inch of spacing in between each panel. So you're not going to see it unless you're very up close, so there's not too much of a gap in between each. All of the wiring is consolidated within the rails underneath the panels, so there's not going to be any sagging wire. And as far as conduit goes, we like to consolidate it within the attic space just so we don't have wires and conduit hanging all around the house. The installs are always very clean, and the installers take pride in what they put out, just because we've seen some freak shows and we just don't want it to be another one of those. As far as structural upgrades, we had an engineer approve the home, so there's no need for any work within the home. But other than that, I'll leave it up to you for any questions or anything that I might have left out. Thank you.
Questions?
I have a question. There's a tree on the corner of Middle and Aldrich. Is that the city's or yours, or the homeowners?
I think that it is the homeowners, but I'm not 100%. Is it because of the?
Well, it's certainly going to see these when you turn into Aldrich,
Yep.
but that tree blocks it a bit. And as long as
I would
it's
say,
there,
but
I
I would also agree with one of David's recent claims that the vegetation is fragile. It's an oak tree, so it will lose its vegetation in the winter months. And there was actually a large branch, so there's the 2 trees, the one more in on Aldrich, that is, that much larger tree lost a greater half of the branch, fell right into their driveway. So that smaller tree does do a good job of blocking it from the side if you're driving more north. If you're driving south, you're not going to see the panels unless you're really craning your neck towards the house. If you're driving on Aldrich, both of the trees provide good natural cover, but like I mentioned, in the wintertime, we're not going to have that luxury. Like I mentioned, we tried to keep them as aesthetically pleasing as possible, so we're just working in squares. There's no patchwork on the home, so we did try to keep them just in the shapes of rectangles. That answered your question.
More questions? You can open this up to the public now.
I'll just say, I don't have a question, but I'll just say that this is hard for me because this is very visible. I mean, these trees are beautiful, but for 6 months out of the year, there are no leaves, so that you will see very clearly the solar panels on that very visible side of the house. So that's going to be hard for me.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would just agree with you on that. And let me ask you a question. In this drone view or whatever it is of the property, that garage or barn or whatever it is, is that owned by the property owners?
Yes.
Okay. So would I be correct in assuming that if you put the solar panels on the left-hand side, that would not be visible? Is that feasible?
You're correct. They wouldn't be visible, but as far as when I explored all of the options that were there, that did come up. As far as everything goes with solar, you want to have things as south-facing as possible, and unfortunately, that south face is going to be the most visible face. That western side of the roof isn't large enough to accommodate the 26 panels that they would need, which would defeat the purpose of the project itself, just because they would be below that carbon neutral point. They wouldn't be offsetting their complete electric usage.
But maybe I'm not orienting this correctly, but isn't that garage the right-hand side of the roof facing east, and isn't the left-hand side facing west?
I would agree with you. I would say that one is more southwest and one is more northeast. So that's something that we could venture into, but it's not desirable just because, like I mentioned, if we were to go onto both faces, east and west production is great in the mornings and then later in the day, but you're not going to get that full day exposure to achieve greater production. I wouldn't put panels on the left side of that garage.
All right, Martin?
This is a really beautiful home, and these panels would be atrocious on this home. I have to be honest with you. And so, even if they were on the barn, that would be an atrocious act as well. So I cannot support this, so I'm sorry.
Understood.
Anyone else I'd like to ask? Oh, I'm sorry. David, yes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. You mentioned that there's some control surfaces that need to be installed and that they'll be blocked from view to the neighbor's property by a fence that's currently there.
And the road as well.
And the road as well. How, just, I guess, possibly from my education only, how big are these?
Larger than a main service panel in a home. I would say about 1.5 feet wide, about 6 inches in depth, and panel that would have to go into a home.
And it be mounted with some child-proof distance, 5 feet off the ground or something like that?
Something like that.
How do you get your wiring to these things?
So like I had mentioned, the conduit run would most likely go within the attic space and then down through the soffits and then...
So you're wiring from the units, your power supply, so to speak, from the units, drop into the attic space, traipse across the attic, and then
would
down the
drop
side of the building?
Down into the soffits and run parallel to the gutter on the back side of the building.
As wires?
As conduit. So it'd be a 1-inch conduit, 1.5-inch conduit that would run down the back side. The same way as the electric wires attached to the back of the home and then run down to their electric meter in the back.
PVC?
Yes, sir.
Comes in colors?
Yeah, it does.
Brackets?
People paint them typically. The brackets, they typically paint them to match the color of the home.
Are you the kind of people that paint them?
We don't paint them. It's more of a preference thing on the homeowner's end.
Not here. There's no preference things here.
They're white, right?
If that's going to make it or break it, then...
Well, I'm just, I don't know what's going to happen, but I have to make sure that you know where we're coming from. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to open this up to the public. Would anyone like to comment on this project?
There's no one online.
And there's no one online. So I'm going to close this public hearing. I'm looking for a motion and any discussion. Any more discussion, I should say.
I'll make a motion for sake of discussion to approve this application
Understand.
as presented.
Any seconds on it?
A second for discussion?
Okay. So, let's discuss. Larry, at this point, yes, Dan.
Got it.
Very visible. The trees are nice, but as we said, it's only there 6 months. When you come down Middle Street, you're going to get a flash.
Okay, so
I'm not happy with it.
you're not supporting it?
I where they are, being as visible as they are.
Margaret?
I have nothing to add.
I have very little to add. I will just reiterate that what others have said, it's a very, very nice house, regular, pleasant house, well-sited, extraordinary view, and flashing surface that's, at the moment, going to seem wrong. Maybe 10 years from now, it won't seem like a wrong thing, but right now, to me, it's just hard to say this is what we should do for our historic district.
Karen?
I can't support it.
I guess that I am the only one that supports this. 10 years from now, yes, it'll be there. 10 years from now, I might not be here. We make a big deal about solar panels. I've heard from some members of our commission that they are removable, and so that makes a difference. I didn't hear that tonight, but they are essentially held down with rubber gaskets and a very small lag screw, the channels. So they are removable in the future when another technology might come along and replace them with something else. But I feel as a citizen and as a member of this country that I have to support these. I am not offended by the look of them. When I see them on houses, I don't go, oh my God, there's solar panels. I just, they're there. The same way that other things that we see now are there. All houses have an electric meter on the corner and all of this. Somebody has said to me, it's funny the way you guys object to solar panels, but you are fine with asphalt roofs, which obviously this house never had an asphalt roof when it was built. I'm not looking for an argument, but those are my opinions. So, let's have a vote. All those in favor?
One last comment.
Yeah.
10 years from now, we're probably going to have solar shingles or, screens. So there's going to be big changes. And if we're talking about preserving the historic district for 10 years to wait for better solar technology, I think it's worth preserving the historic district.
All right.
That's all. Thank you.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. And those opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, I'm afraid you'll have to come back with another plan or whatever. Thank you. Okay. Public hearings, new business. Petition of Stephen and Catherine Singlar, owners, for property located at 39 Holmes Court, wherein permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure, add a recessed shed dormer, and renovations to an existing structure, replace windows and trim, remove chimney, and replace with a faux chimney, and the installation of mechanical equipment as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 101 as Lot 13, lies within General Residence B and Historic Districts. And who is here to present this?
Stephen Singlar.
All righty.
And I think.
Would you be happy for me to just run through it?
Yes, please, Brendan.
The application? Yes. Okay, so Brendan McNamara on behalf of Stephen and Kate Singlar. This application came before you as a work session July of last year to essentially ensure that the concept of the recessed shed dormer was acceptable, which you, at that point you suggested that it was. And so it was then subsequently went to the Board of Adjustment and was approved there. And so what is before you is what we had discussed last year in the work session, which is essentially overall it's a restoration of the existing 1900 classic New Englander. Essentially the removal of the asbestos shingles to return it to a wood shingle appearance. But there is the addition of the recessed shed dormer into the attic facing the water, the swapping out, if you like, of the existing chimney to become a faux chimney, and also the addition of a air source heat pump on that water side. It's, I think, fairly well called out in the plans. There's some minor changes to the interior, but essentially the house is in pretty good shape and doesn't need that much done to it, other than the generalised deterioration of the exterior, and especially the windows. And you can see in the elevation there the nature of the new shed dormer. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
How did he just go through this whole project so quick?
Excuse me, but I seem to remember a conversation about windows on the water side of this building at one point. What, does anyone else remember
There
that?
was, yeah. When we did the application initially last year, we had added windows on that east elevation. We'd added 2 new windows at first and second floor level. Subsequently, Steve and Kate have decided that they didn't want to go ahead with that.
Well, thank you. I was puzzled as to what the storyline there was. And I guess, if you don't mind, what made you think that this was more appropriate to be shingled than to be clapboarded?
Because we think it was originally shingled, and the generalised appearance, even though it's asbestos shingled, is also suggestive of that.
When you say originally, is that
in 1900?
Before it was clapboarded, it was shingled?
No, I don't believe it was ever clapboarded.
Pardon?
I don't believe it was originally clapboarded.
It is currently clapboarded.
No, it has asbestos shingles on it.
Well, okay, underneath the asbestos shingles, it is currently clapboarded with corner boards. I'm concerned about the loss of the vertical elements and the fact that the building next door, which is identical to it in almost every degree, is still clapboarded. Anyway, that's just a thought.
Okay. Well, buildings also of this era were definitely shingled as well in the same period.
Is that your position?
Yeah, well,
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask why you think that it might have been originally shingled rather than clapboard?
Well, I had my experience I'm trying to think of the building in over near the high school, and it was a building that we ended up tearing down, but next to it is a shingled building of the same era, and there was actually advertisements from that builder in the paper in the 1900s showing these buildings as shingled. And it appeared to be a builder tradition of the period.
Yeah. I guess my question is, have you done any exploration underneath the asbestos panels that are on it now?
I have not.
Okay.
No, I have
did.
not.
Oh, you did? Okay.
It was just happens to be a loose piece of siding on the water side of the building that showed a 4.5 inch corner board and pine shingles. Excuse me, pine clapboard.
please, David.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Brendan, I'm not, either I'm missing it or the placement of the heat pump. Where is that going to be? Behind the house? Where did I miss it?
It's on the site plan.
Yeah.
It's on the water side of the house.
And did you have any?
It's just on the plan showing that, yeah.
So did you have any screening planned for that?
We did not, because the Singlers own the property between it and the water, so the screening would be in the matter of landscaping.
I hear what you're saying. They may not always own both properties, and a new neighbor might feel differently.
Cut
Just a
down the
thought.
bushes.
There was, I didn't include in here, there was a landscaping plan shown for 43 that does involve some shrubbery screening in the area of it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If nobody else has got any questions or comments about this?
Well, I guess my question then, going back to the siding issue, is that if you do some investigation underneath the current siding, would you, and it is clapboard with corner boards and everything, would you be amenable to, I mean, would you consider going back to that original rather than the shingles?
I mean, the
Ultimately, that'd have to be up to Steve. We had, so because it's asbestos, we hadn't done any, pulling off of things to get in there. But we made the assumption, whether it was rightly or wrongly, that they had done the asbestos shingle to replicate what was beneath it. And so we'd follow that line, which also is, I feel, quite legitimate. It may not have been when they strip it off to be the case, but that would be up to Steve.
Yeah, I mean, our preference would be to keep what's been proposed. We went through discussion. That corner you're referring to had fallen off. There's a lot of rot underneath there, which is why that board is exposed under there. And we had a lot of discussion.
Fixed it, though, I'm quite sure.
I appreciate that.
Waterproof now and everything.
Yeah. We talked a lot about the different options and what would make the house look good and fit into that spot. We don't want to change the look of it as much as we can, including hopefully color as well. But we came to the conclusion that we thought it would dress the house up nicely with the proposed outside shingles.
Right, if there's no more questions, then I'm going to ask if any member of the public would like to speak about this proposal. And there's nobody online, so I'm going to close this public hearing. And looking for motions, any supporting discussions or supporting oppositions.
John, I would just simply chime in and say that given the quality of the restoration and what's being brought back, I take no exception to wood cedar shingles being used for this project.
Is that a motion?
That's not a motion, it's a comment.
No, but we're looking for a motion to get things going.
I could give you a motion if you really want one.
Yeah.
I propose a motion that we approve as presented.
All right. Second?
Second.
Now, I want to have any more comments. I'm sorry, but support the motion.
I did that. And
But we have comments.
And the findings of fact are that preserves the integrity of the district and is consistent with the special and defining character of the surrounding properties.
All right.
To which I would argue, sir.
Okay.
In as much as the special defining character of the neighborhood, that particular part of the district, they're all clapboard houses. Virtually all clapboard houses in sight of this. As far as the integrity of this particular building, conserving its architectural history, it is a clapboarded building, and along with the clapboards, it has corner boards and vertical elements that actually create a blending of that exterior into both the hatch mark, horizontals and verticals together, adding visual interest. And then thirdly, in terms of the special character of its next door neighbor, to which is identical to, they used the same plans, identical. They didn't even flip them as they used to do in the 70s in the parks. I think there's a departure that doesn't need to be done. And I'm sure that there are some issues with the current siding that's there, but I'll bet the major issue with the siding that drove it to be re-sided was that it was just, they were tired of painting it.
Yeah. And just to give you a sense of why I think it's acceptable, I got to think all the corner boards are gone. Just the way, I don't see any sort of telegraphing through some of that siding that's there. I could be wrong, but.
Well, I saw a corner
I'd
board
say
in one
that-
spot. I'm a one-for-one guy. One piece of siding came off and one corner board was visible. That's sort of, I'm easy to sell on that one-to-one relationship.
Would anyone else like to jump in on this before we?
Was that evidence collected
Call
legally?
for a vote?
No, I don't think so. I need to be arrested.
Unfortunately.
I was wearing my badge at the time, though.
Yeah, that's, as long as you got that badge on, you can do it.
Didn't save me from a parking ticket, though.
I would say that in other circumstances, in other buildings, we have encouraged people to go back to the original, wherever possible, wherever there was clear evidence. And I think we're departing a little bit from that norm. If we don't request that the homeowner do that investigation and come back to us and tell us what they found, and ask at that point if they still want to proceed with the shingling.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm wondering how many houses in the South End, certainly in this area, are there that are strictly shingled without the corner board? I can't think of any at the moment.
I'm willing to add a stipulation that through administrative approvals, they come back with direction on the siding.
If they're thorough
If you're
investigation.
agreeable to that.
After investigations.
Yeah, and, well, I would just like to say, and excuse me, but if we're preserving our historic district 10 years from now, that allowing wood shingles to go on this is a trap. It shouldn't even be considered at all. This type of house was never wooden shingle. If it had made the style, the jump into the stick style from 1910 or something, there's a possibility it could have been half shingled, half clapboards, but it wasn't. This is a simple front gable, what we call a New Englander. It actually has, you know, I mean, there with the wide corner boards, it's got some leftover Greek elements and things to it. It's just not shingled, and they never were. So I cannot support this as shingled.
Who seconded yours?
That's all I can say.
Who seconded?
I'm not sure if we're doing this properly.
So, John, he made an amendment to his
Yeah.
motion that they would come back to us with the siding, administrative
Oh,
approval.
excuse me for getting my opinion out.
No, I'm glad, so that will appease, I think, most of our opinions to push them.
Heard this, is they have to remove the siding, or we give them permission to remove the siding?
Stipulation.
So it would just be approval as presented with the stipulation that after an investigation into the original siding, that they come back for administrative approval if they are to deviate from what they find underneath said asbestos siding.
Yeah. The one thing that I would tell you, if any dollars are involved in this and concerned with the amount of money that can go into this house, I have found upon removing asbestos siding that it does an excellent job of preserving the clapboards, if it's not busted and leaking. So I have found many times that the siding is good enough to paint. You don't have to replace it unless you want to. You have that right as far as a one-on-one clapboard for clapboard type of replacement. So.
What if
we
there's
haven't
any
voted.
other, if there's examples of other homes in nearby? I know you said you couldn't think of any, but I can think of some that are in that area that have it on there. If there are examples to be shown, and we decide to stick with the proposed, does that also
You can
count?
bring that to the administrative approval.
Okay.
So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So obviously, we have voted for some change here. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
A request to postpone. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? So Counselor Blaylock has entered the room.
Good evening.
You're almost done, though.
I tried my best. There was
Moving
traffic.
right along. Petition of Ann F. Moody Living Trust, Ann F. Moody trustee, owner, for property located at 180 Newcastle Avenue, wherein permission is requested to allow the installation of mechanical equipment, solar panels, as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 101 as Lot 23 and lies within Single Residence B in the historic districts. So who is here to present this? Ann F. Moody.
Anne, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. All right, so if you wouldn't mind just walking through the presentation to the commission. Then
Okay.
We'll,
so this was done by the contractor, so I was sort of just here to listen in, but I can do my very best. Surprised nobody is there. They're just letting it go by the wayside. So basically, the situation is I live on 180 Newcastle Avenue. I was considering installing solar. I listened to your earlier comments. The solar panels would be installed on the back side of my property, which is in the historic district, so not facing the primary access. So it would be visible to my neighbors, but not visible from the street line, and is basically just to provide an offset to electrical, trying to do sort of an environmentally friendly thing with low impact. And so this is the design that was provided by Freedom. In that vein, they have had an engineering team out inspecting that. I can't speak to what that looked like because I'm not an engineer, but these are their plans that they have provided to you. I'm happy to try and answer any additional questions.
Any questions, comments?
Well, I think given the lack of visibility from the public way, the waterway, and Newcastle Avenue, it really is more a question of how the addition to this is that the panel appear a little bit random. I mean, there's one that's kind of out of line of.
This is a new roof.
That's a new roof.
That's not
Yeah.
there.
Okay,
There's a
so
dormer.
That was to accommodate, there are some vents. So it is a bit of a weird conglomeration of panels. It's not exactly what I would love either, but because of venting from previous owners and how things had to sort of be vented from or through the roof, they couldn't do sort of a grid panel, and so that's why they are a little disorganized in that sense. Yeah, you can see the vents coming out in that picture. Sort of right by the 101, there's a small vent also. And so that's sort of what they're contending with. So aesthetically, it's not as much as pleasing as I think any of us would like, but from a functionality perspective, it is doing exactly what it's supposed to do.
Okay.
Well, I'll just say that this is a situation where the solar panels are totally hidden from the main views, and I'm much more comfortable supporting this application than what we saw on Middle Street. And it just is whether or not you're lucky enough to have a south-facing rear of your house,
Right.
So.
Yep. And that's the reason that I'm considering this. It is such a great south-facing thing that if I can sort of contribute to that environmentally, environmental movement forward in terms of trying to take things off of the grid, I think that that's a responsible thing to do. And this definitely doesn't have an impact from the historic district in terms of visibility from the street. And these are super low profile panels. I don't know about the previous ones, but they are black. They blend well. I mean, they will definitely be noticeable, but I think that the benefits outweigh the cost potentially.
Any other comments? No.
I would expect that we would have architectural materials to judge this, this addition to this historic home. We don't have that. We have a lot of engineering drawings. We are an architectural review board for the most part. I couldn't support it just for that. I'd want to see what the view is from the side street. This still is a historic house in a historic district. So for all these panels to just be placed, and so for that reason, I cannot support it.
Are there any other questions and comments? Yes.
Thank you, Aaron. I always like to be supportive of solar panels when we can be, but I think these are hidden enough from the main view. I don't think this is front row. I know we've had several, I've said it before, we've had several meetings over keeping our history above water, so I'd be supportive of this.
Anybody else?
I just would like to say it certainly passes the sniff test in terms of the heavy impact on the district. On the other hand, I guess I have people on Ball Street, and so I know that they'll be looking at this every time they leave their house. That shouldn't be that great a consideration. I'm surprised that there's no representation here,
Right.
honestly. But I would, in terms of something that Mr. Ryan had said at an earlier time, that these have that sort of fell off the back of the truck look. And I think that this is that hodgepodgey thing that the previous solar engineer was talking about. I'd like to see a revision of this that cleaned it up a little bit so that it looked more purposeful. And I guess on the basis of that and some sort of better idea as to how reflective it's going to be, and hopefully, I'll hear it over the course of the next few days from my friends on Ball Street. But I'm on the fence with this.
I'd like to make a comment on this. So historically over time, right, you guys have approved and things have been done to this house in a historically approved manner that has caused this situation with the roof where venting and things have to be done in a certain way. So you are basically like, I completely respect the need for historic preservation and trying to do what's right. But conversely, I am also very much a huge proponent of trying to move the ball forward in ways that are beneficial for our environment. And this sits on the backside of my home. And while it may not be a perfect grid, it is doing a service. And like this to me seems like a problem that you guys are objecting to this. I mean, I'm not even 100% sure I want to do this, but the fact that you guys are objecting to this when it's on a non-facing, street-facing side of this, and I'm trying to do something that is beneficial for our environment, is very concerning for me. Like, what is the most important thing here? I am trying to protect the front of the house, protect the view and the feel and the look and the integrity of the historic district, but do something that's environmentally beneficial. And this is the issue. Like, I want the grid on the roof to look pretty. Like, that to me feels like not in the best service of our community.
Well, if I can just interject something here, and I think this is something some of my compatriots have been getting at by the statement of hodgepodge. As I look at this picture, you've basically got a gray roof, a light gray roof that I think you're going to be putting very dark solar panels on. So it is going to stand out quite a bit more than a situation where you would be dealing with, I don't know the age of your roof, but that would have a much greater contrast in colors than what you would if you had, like, say, a dark black, charcoal black architectural shingle.
But what is
and then
what
a
is
panel
the
on top
goal?
of that.
What is the purpose of this committee? Is it to preserve the historic district and the look and the feel? This is literally the back of my house.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm not so certain that we're really going to benefit anything about this application by going through an argument, but I would suggest that the applicant look up in our charter and pretty quickly notice that nowhere in it does it say anything about anybody's electric bills in the community. It says things like preserving.
This is a net zero for me.
Okay,
Sir, this is a net zero for
Sorry.
me. I am not gaining anything in this from an electric perspective. I literally, this is enough to cover my electric bill. It's a net. This for me is like, we are trying to environmentally improve what's going on in this world, and improving that includes bringing in solar power. And so I'm trying to find a balance between historic and progressive modeling. And what I'm hearing from this group is historic at the expense of moving the ball forward in an environmentally sound way. And this is literally sitting on the back of my house, and what you guys are objecting to is the aesthetics of this, which if my neighbors have an objection, that's a different situation. If Maggie and Gary and all of my other neighbors, Nancy and David, have an objection to this, I would be on board with an objection. But what I'm hearing from you guys is just simply that aesthetically you don't think that this is pleasing. And so you think that this isn't good. And I'm trying to say, find the balance. Like, you guys are here to represent the city as a whole, and you guys are making this crazy. Like, this is literally the back of my house that does not impact the look and the feel of the south end.
Okay,
And I mean,
you've made your point.
this
It's a
is
very
crazy.
good point, and you've done an awful lot of work on this, I'm very sure. And I appreciate the fact that you are trying to do what you feel is best for the environment. So if there's no other comments, I'm going to open this up to the public.
I just have one more comment, and that is, there is, we care about the environment too. Environment, which is under threat by, this situation where you're dismissing our role here as a board to protect the historic district.
I am not dismissing that.
We don't.
That is completely inaccurate.
I'm sorry, I'm just making a comment.
You're starting, I mean.
I'm making a comment.
You're arguing with.
I'm done.
Okay. Would anybody in the public like to speak about this? So I'm going to close this public hearing and look for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the application as presented.
I'll second it with the, I guess, the encouragement to possibly look at simplifying the grid layout of these panels on the back, if possible.
So that's a stipulation? Are you okay with that
Yes.
stipulation?
Yes.
Yeah.
If possible.
So anybody else want to, you have to defend your.
Yes, I'm trying to look for my findings of fact. I will say, since it'll keep it above water, preserving the integrity of the district, and compatibility of innovative technologies with surrounding properties.
All righty. Would anybody else like to get a comment in before I call for the vote?
Yes.
Okay.
I am completely supportive of putting solar panels on the back of this house. However, this is a design review board, and I believe that the design of these panels falls within our purview, just as we would comment on the design, the type of slate that went on, and whether it was a pattern or not, and what we would do with windows. If we're going to include solar panels in the historic district where the appearance of a building is within our purview, I think we need to take into account the appearance of these panels. They are things being added to the building. They affect the appearance of the building. So I would support putting panels on if we had a different arrangement that was more aesthetically pleasing and worked better with the color of the roof. I think that Larry had and Dan had was it Larry or Dan? Larry, had a very good point about the high contrast in this particular situation.
So Reagan has made a stipulation. How does that work?
It was purely encouragement. There was nothing to my stipulation that bound them to anything.
Which is why I could
Well,
not support it.
I would think that we should make that a stipulation, not an encouragement. That the stipulation, be, how could we word this? That the panels be arranged in a more methodical order. I can already see.
So you guys
Right
do
now.
realize that this basically kills this, right? Like this stipulation on the back of my house that you're making will actually make this project go away. And if that's what you guys want, then that's what you're going to succeed in.
Mr. Chairman, my motion was to approve it as presented.
Yes, okay, that's right. But there is no
I'll just
stipulation?
remind that this is the back of a house.
I understand that.
Yeah.
There was, again, purely encouragement, no stipulation.
Right, so we can move forward with the original motion as presented.
It was seconded.
And then
Yes.
we can
Okay.
decide if that's.
If
what we
we're
want to
moving
vote on,
forward
or-
with the initial motion, then my comments stand in terms of not being able to support this.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed?
So I'm not getting that vote. Did you get it?
3-3. as far
No.
as-
Roll call.
Yeah, we need a roll call vote. So, Dan?
No.
Martin?
Opposed.
Yes.
No.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
David?
No.
Karen?
I'm not voting.
'Cause Rich
I'm a
is-
no, but I'm not voting.
No, I'm sorry, yes, I'd forgotten that, that's,
So the noes have it, 4-3.
so the noes have it.
All right, you guys do your job. You keep
thank you.
banging that out there.
Thank you.
I apologize, Ann.
This is Novacure. This is a work session hosted by Novacure Incorporated, owner of the property located at 64 Bond Street, wherein permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure. Construction of a rooftop pavilion as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 126 as Lot 1, lies within Character District 5. So we're going down.
Cool.
To end our evening. Take that seat right there. Usually, my good vice chair sits there. But Okay, you guys, introduce yourselves.
So I'll start. My name is Dean Smith. I'm the Associate Director of North American Facilities for Novacure. We were here a few months back with another working session to go over this pavilion. And with the feedback that you guys gave us about, we had proposed a flat roof versus this sloped roof. We took the sloped roof design and actually went to the ZBA, and we're lucky enough to get our variance approved for this pavilion. So the object of tonight's session is to look over a finalized design, to get your feedback on the design before we get a final draft set to go. And Mark from JSA will walk you through the design package in front of you.
Very good. Thank you, Dean. Mark Mueller from JSA Design. Let me just start off, obviously, with the color rendering on the front. We can come back to that
Very nice.
briefly. I just want to walk you through some of the nuts and bolts of the size. As Dean said, the variance was approved, and we basically shaped this roof pavilion within the confines of what can be done in this penthouse arrangement. So what you see on the HDC 2 sheet, which is up on the screen, we've highlighted in blue what is being done. So everything that is not in color, the rest of the floor plan, the roof appurtenance, which is the elevator core and the central stair, frames the left-hand side, and then on the right side, which is along the Von Mall side, we did have another stairway that provided a second means of egress from what was to be just an outdoor roof deck. So those pieces were there. So the proposal for the roof pavilion and closing this, essentially what was the footprint of what was intended to be a roof deck, we are now proposing to enclose that in this conservatory solarium type structure. As Dean said, we looked at a number of options with you a few months back of the shape of this and the shape. There were a few variations that were under consideration. Again, they all fit within the envelope that the zoning variance would permit. So we've arrived at this design, and again, just to walk you through the shape and the proposed skin of this material, and there's a few details that I can call out, probably starting with this roof plan. You'll see that in the center spine of the ridge element, it does have a hipped end facing the Von Mall side, but the center, roughly center third of the floor plan is intended to be an opaque cover. So it would have a standing seam metal roof in a material that would, it would be a Freedom Gray copper, so essentially like a lead-coated copper expression. It would be roughly in the same plane as the glazing, so the rest of the what would appear to be the greenhouse type structure wraps all the way around the perimeter of the plan. You can probably see that best in the next shot. You can see the axonometric drawing that shows the glazing around the perimeter. And then what happens in, I believe we also have maybe 2 sheets, just to skip ahead, maybe 2 pages, just to explain this. There you go. Stop right there. You can see the portion that is right under the ridge or the peak of this greenhouse. It is enclosed, so that part that does have the opaque top gives us an opportunity to conceal mechanical equipment, sprinkler mains, and also reduce the amount of solar gain that this structure is going to be. It's going to have a great deal of daylight, and we're attempting to conceal some of that or reduce some of that, but at the same time also conceal some of the mechanicals that are going to be in there, but yet preserving the perimeter of this structure with glazing.
And you're not asking for solar panels here?
No. No. Although it does have a similar look. And I will point out it's a very regular grid that we've.
If you don't mind, tell us about the transition from the metal to the glazing.
As I said, we're going to obviously the lead-coated copper being above it. There'll be a subtle plane change, but very subtle. Inch and a half in that plane. I mean, it's not going to be a curb, in other words.
Looking down from the parking garage onto this, we won't be looking at a.
You're not going to be seeing a 6 or 8 inch curb. I think I get what you're. Yeah, that would be objectionable to all of us.
It's an element that doesn't fit into this tent concept.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to detail it such that we'll keep it as coplanar as we can. On HTC 5, the elevations, I just want to call out there's a number of existing structural columns that are in the existing building, which dictate where we can bring down new structural columns. The structural engineer really needs to have any point load of this new frame come down directly on top of the column grid that currently exists. So on the bottom drawing, elevation number 1.
Where are we again? Well,
It says in the middle of the page.
I'm not seeing the page numbers.
It's kind of in the middle.
HTC 5. Got
There
it.
we go.
Thank you very much.
So I'll direct your attention to the drawing that's across the very bottom.
Yes.
So right above that title. That's the one I wanted to speak to. You'll see that there are a series of what's labeled as column surround. So we essentially in this new pavilion structure, we have 2 large center bays that are folding glass doors. So they will open completely, open in the term that many of you may be familiar with, a nano wall or some opening glass wall. It may not obviously be that brand yet. We're still vetting those manufacturers, but it's that type of structure. So those will open in a folding partition
Are they
way.
easy to flash?
Easy, relatively speaking.
Okay.
The 2 smaller bays that you see on the outer edges are smaller, and they would have at least one swinging door in that bay. So they provide means of egress from the deck that is still going to be outside of that. We do have a deck as well as what's referred to on this set as a green grid roof. So I did skip over that, but basically on the roof surface, we have a 10-foot setback from the parapet all the way around. So 10 feet back, we're introducing a green grid roof, which is a shallow, pre-planted material that would arrive it's already in a robust manner, but it is a live roof material.
You don't have a garden, I take it.
These are most of the material that they put in these are succulents. So
set them.
That's one of the most common. And we will have a hose bib, and there will be opportunities to irrigate these things. But the point is, we're trying to keep any population of the roof surface away from the edge. So we've created this 10-foot buffer all the way around, and then there would be an exterior wood deck that is just outside of this pavilion. So that was the point of these large opening doors, to give a little bit of access out to an open air opportunity on the roof. So that bottom elevation is the side that faces the Worth parking lot. The middle elevation, directly above it, is the short end that's facing Vaughn Mall. The center element that has the 3 individual windows, that is the side of the small appurtenance, which was part of the original design. That provides a means of egress down and linking it to a new fire stair that's been built. So that is essentially an opaque structure with the exception of these 3 windows, and it does have a flat rubber roof. So it abuts what I would call the superstructure of the glazed pavilion. And then you'll see on either side we are bookending this structure with the same kind of glazing and swinging doors that you see in the last bays on the Worth lot side. So we're basically taking these small corner elements, wrapping the corner in a very similar fashion, and then in the center allowing for these larger folding walls. The elevation that's on the top of the page is the side that's facing the La Coretta restaurant, which has there's quite a bit of activity, rooftop mechanical activity on that building, as well as on our building. We do have condensing units that are up just on the other side of this wall. So we're proposing that this roof pavilion have essentially a solid wall up to where the sloping glazing comes down. And we would be cladding that in the same material that the rest of the building is. If you've been out there this week, you see they just started to put up this shiplap siding, which is on the new addition. So this would be the same material up there. So I've covered the section, and the last I think 4 or 5 pages here are similar exhibits that we brought to the zoning board. But again, to reiterate that the views of this rooftop pavilion from different vantage points around the building, at least from an eye level perspective, and by virtue of this following the zoning guidelines for a penthouse structure, which means it's of a certain scale, a limited height, and it's been set back. And the last part is the most important because it's set back from the perimeter. And the point of these last exhibits is to show the efficacy of that setback. It does reduce the amount of visibility of the structure. And I know to the point that some of you had expressed earlier that if you had your druthers, you would see it. And it's not like we're trying to completely camouflage this thing. Of course, you will be able to see it, but the effect of it looming over its neighbors is going to be completely diminished by virtue of that setback. The last page, I'll just take you there quickly because this shows some of the components that are represented in those elevations, and these are really sort of the basis of design. You can see pretty standard standing seam roof in the upper left corner, the lower larger photograph of the folding doors. Probably a very similar color, actually, to this particular photograph. We have all black window frames in the building currently, and our intent would be to stick with that coloration. And on the corner column post or column surround, as it was referred to on the elevations, shows a bit of the sort of historicist look that this steel's essentially is what will look like a steel or aluminum structure. It will have these solid elements where the new structural frame is being placed. We are going to wrap that structural frame in an aluminum enclosure, which really this is just intended to give that type of recall of a historic approach to these steel structures.
Including the base and the cap?
It would have the base and the capital. We do have, this particular one has multiple steps at a cornice, which we're not proposing. But these do come up and stop at a frieze that is part of the skin, as well as we will have a projecting K-style gutter that will go all the way around the edge. So that's the current thinking. Again, we're in the process of refining and vetting some of these proposals from a cost standpoint, and that to some degree may impact our final selections. But this is our current path, and we'd like to get any feedback from you
Very
tonight.
well said. All right, so comments?
I just had a question. The one choice of materials you have not shown yet is the glass paneling. I'm assuming that the roof panels that go on top of these folding doors are not what you have planned. They just happen to be.
Which
this roof is not your roof. You picked this picture because of the doors.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So right now, you don't have a specification
For the
or a
final
plan?
glazing?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all, I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah,
We're working with different vendors to get suggestions so that we can find out what's the best, the low E, whatever we could to maximize the energy savings and the glare from what we're looking at now.
Yeah, as you can imagine, there's thousands of varieties of glass, and I think we want to be mindful that we're not trying to create a mirror glass look or a blue tinted glass. We're going to try to keep it, to look like it would have been a historic, a gray glass, maybe a very, very subtle greenish tint to it. But it's not going to be an
David's got a
objectionable
question, yeah?
glass.
You're referencing historic looks, and I thought I'd mention that some glass panels, some old-timey looks of these kinds of structures show ribs visible to the surface rather than smooth glass surfaces. This photo, which is, you said admittedly, not what you're planning on doing, but has a very, very modest rib to it, whereas some historic elements are quite heavily ribbed. And thinking about the fact that, for the most part, the vision of this is going to be just the top 8 inches of the building, that may be something that accentuated the rib nature of the glazing surface would be appropriate. Maybe even more so
Do you think this?
than bases to the columns.
Yeah. Oh, the basis,
Sure.
I understand,
Yeah.
I know it. Of course, you could go back to the good old days when.
They just lay the shits on each other,
They would
yeah.
just lay one piece of glass on top of another like that, on their way up to the peak.
Thinking about we all know about the glass
The one comment, I don't know if we'll do this yet, or if it will be a suggestion from one of the vendors. But I just want to test the board's familiarity with of a ceramic frit on a glass. You're probably all familiar with the little dots that you might see around the perimeter of an automobile windshield. So that's essentially what I'm talking about. So some glazing vendors might suggest, in order to help control the amount of sunlight that comes through, they actually can treat the surface of the glass or even an interlayer with a fritting or a pattern to help obscure that. And those patterns are highly customizable. You can get virtually any shape or size, density, even color. But that might be a possibility.
So I want to thank you for my word of the day, fritting. I never heard that before. Very good. More questions?
If I just want to say something, first of all, I'm the new guy, but I really like it. I mean, it looks like something like, first I was thinking Bryant Park, and I'm like, no, it actually looks like a, London Botanical Garden kind of structure. It looks beautiful. I like it. I do have a question, though. If you look at HDC 5, elevation 3, on the far right-hand side, those 3 windows would look like they agree with the same page, elevation 1. But if I go down to HDC 8 and look at that top picture, it almost looks like those windows are doorways. And I think it's pretty either way. There goes that word again.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah. But what is it? Is it windows, or is it like this looks like a doorway here at the top of HDC 8?
Just because you can only see the top of the window.
You know what I'm talking about?
I see what you're talking about in this corner right here.
Yeah. Well, right
it's
over here.
Oh, you're looking over here? Because that's really where the mechanicals are. That's going to be your condensers and your H.
Oh, so that's the mechanicals. That's what you're hiding by the others. Okay.
Right. So that's why that's a solid wall on that side.
Just for clarification, on drawing
thinking it was part of the
3
structure,
on
sorry.
HDC 5, we did not show the mechanicals there. We're showing what's on the skin of the structure that's behind it.
Yeah, I misread that. I thought that was part of the window structure there or something, so, okay, got it, thanks.
Yes.
I'll just say it's, you can barely see it from the Worth Lot view. I almost wish you could see it a little bit more on that side. But what you can see, I think I like it a lot.
I hate to say it, I think it's the Hanover Garage is where you're going to see the most.
Yeah, I don't want to see. I think an active
Unfortunately,
rooftop.
'cause you're right.
You know what I mean? I'm so excited that Novacure is downtown in Portsmouth, and that you guys decided to come downtown and not go out to Pease. But I love the idea of an active rooftop too. I think we have so many flat roofs that just collect snow, and so I'm for this. I'm very supportive of this, but I like the green roof going around it. You know what I mean? That it is set back, so you aren't, leaning over and,
And there's still a railing. It's very faint on this front picture, but there is a railing between the deck and where that green roof starts as well.
Right.
So there's an added layer of
It's even
protection
better.
as well. Right.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if that's going to be one of those wire systems or metal systems. You haven't decided that
We
yet.
haven't, but I think we're leaning towards that. Something that, although it's there, it's not very visible, is what we're trying to achieve.
And there will be, as part of that railing system, or maybe just set adjacent to it, there will be a very understated light bollard. I've seen these beautiful landscape bollards that are no bigger than like a 2-inch by 2-inch square tube, 42 inches high, and with just an indirect, just something to cast a little bit of light on the deck. It's certainly not shining up or out, but it's just going to make people aware that they're not going to walk into this wire railing. And we do want to keep people away from the green grid. And,
Especially that Christmas party.
Yeah, of course. Or the HDC party that that happens once a year.
So more
I don't know how
comments.
many people will be out there on the Christmas party, but summertime.
I don't know, Christmas parties, things happen. Come on, more comments, this is our chance. Martin?
Yeah, I think it's terrific. I think it's developing very nicely. It's perfect in that it's not too tall, but it still has a nice cap to the building. I'd say the only objection I have, the only thing that sticks with me a little bit is how the stair element, the stair enclosure meets the glassed pavilion. It's kind of inartful. And I'm just wondering if there was a way to maybe blend it a little better.
Yeah,
or
we're
make a statement there.
in the process of, before the pavilion came about, and it was just a roof deck, we actually had a sloped roof, and that may be what's still there now. And we said, we're going for this, so stop building it because it's going to get revised. And the reason that I've suggested going back to a flat is because you can imagine if this had a slope to it, all that's going to do is just make glazing around it just that much more complicated, and it's just going to draw your eye right to this odd duck that's up there. So I think trying to create just a simple flat lid to this to let the glazing sort of run uninterrupted is the intent. It still is going to have a continuous freeze. It will have the same gutter system that's around there at the same elevation. So we're doing our best to make it blend into what we have. But I do hear you. I'll continue to look at whatever refinements can be
I had
done.
to say something.
I was saying, do you have enough height that you can hit the ends?
Why can't you?
Well, we do.
Just the ends.
On one side, we have more height than we need, and then at the other, we're going to be pinched to having just the amount height. But that's probably the best opportunity.
6'8", is that?
Is just to revisit exactly. Well, for doors, but you really want to be at 7.0 inside. So we'll take a second look at that and see if there's any way we can continue to lower it.
I mean, you do get a sense of it looking over legends. Maybe there's something that's anyway. I'm sure you get it.
Yep, yep.
One of the, I just will add, one of the proposals that we brought before you a few months ago, and this is back when we were, we had a center portion that was a flat top.
Yeah.
And there were a number of reasons where that was done for a similar reason to what we're doing now, in that it did restrict the amount of glazing that we're doing. It created a flat top really to help extend horizontally where the sloped portion started. So, and what I mean by that is that we were trying to raise the perimeter. Okay, so the vertical wall that goes all the way around, once you start sloping it and you have a fixed height, at some point you got to really push the walls down in order to not exceed that height. And that flat top allowed us to raise the edges so our pitch would go up and then stop. So, but we've settled on this simpler peaked and hipped form, and that did push the edges down a little bit. So that just adds a little bit to the complication, if you will, of trying to get that difference. But I hear you, and we'll continue to look at that and see if we can create a little bit more articulation between the two.
Still good.
Okay. So I would assume that unless anyone else has any other comments or anything, that you're going to come back with another work session, and we could do a work session public hearing.
Yeah, I think it's our intention to, once we digest your comments tonight, we're going to continue to detail it and come before you. But if a combined proposal would be appropriate.
Because then we would have the detailed specs of the glazing, what everything would be.
Well, yeah, you'd have to have everything.
No, I know, but that's why we're here tonight, to just see if there was anything that,
Because
if we
you
were
don't-
driving down a path that you were saying, no way, that you gotta go a
You're
different
missing
direction.
a few things, and all of a sudden, you're not going to get, we're not going to go through
Agreed.
the approval.
Yep.
So it has to be very complete.
It will.
So what do we do, close this, or what?
There's nobody in the public in Zoom,
Oh. Okay,
and there's nobody here.
all right, there's nobody in the public. Or,
It's too late.
No, he's good.
In line? One line? Nope.
Move to continue, or?
yeah, I guess
Yes.
that's
Let's move to continue to a work session unless you guys have everything figured out when we go to both. Work and public, but I don't think you're quite ready for public.
If you guys are done and ready to move forward, we can just close the work session.
I think so.
I think we're good to close it, and the next time we'll have the full specifications and everything ready for approval.
I move we close this work session.
Second?
Yeah, so we need the motion, though, has got to be for a work session public hearing.
That's what they file.
Okay, that's what they, all right, thanks.
Next set, yep.
Great.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah.
Aye.
And a move to adjourn?
Aye.
Any conversation?